Waters. Senator Waters.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, gents, for dialling in tonight. I'm pleased you didn't have to come all this way and burn all of that carbon unnecessarily.
Larissa, do you mind if I can't hear over there. Do you mind if I come down?
No, by all means, Minister. Make yourself comfortable. So, gents, on the phone, last time we discussed, you talked to me about the National Sea Simulator program, and you then also mentioned that you'd had to deprioritise some of what you called strategic research in favour of research for the oil and gas industry. And you mentioned one example was that you'd had to deprioritise was your work on the natural and anthropogenic pressures on fish physiology and behaviour in that National Sea Simulator. Was there any other examples of work, perhaps work that was ecologically focused, that you've had to deprioritise in favour of research for the oil and gas
Senator, this is John Gunn. I'll answer that question. So crosswise a little there. The work for the oil and gas industry does not involve the National Sea Simulator. And in answer to your question, there is no specific projects that we've deprioritised other than the one that I've given you previously.
Okay, thank you. No others. That's good to hear. Has the funding stream from offshore oil and gas been impacted in terms of the work you're then being funded to do by them, given the oil price crash?
I think right across that sector, there's pressure on expenditure, and as usual, we're working pretty hard to make sure our work is relevant. And at the moment, we're still in negotiation on a number of projects. So I'm hoping it won't have too much impact on the research we do.
Okay. So have you been able to maintain the flow of your work that you anticipated from that sector so far?
Yes, we're very, very heavily engaged with a number of the major players in the Northwest Shelf and Browse Basin oil and gas sector.
Okay, could you perhaps take on notice for me to give me as much information as you can about the scope of those projects and where they're at in terms of how far advanced they are? And just maybe... sorry.
Can certainly do that. But perhaps just a very quick comment back is that we do work with a range of companies, and the broad spectrum is really around providing environmental baselines before they go and do any of their exploratory or production drilling. The type of work we've been doing has been running for well over 20 years now in association with industry, and I think it was last week Woodside Energy Limited won the APIA Environment Award for the type of work that we do with them.
An APIA Environment Award? Is it?
Yes, an APIA Environment Award for an
contradiction in terms there, but anyway.
That's a comment.
I'll leave that. Sorry, I didn't realise they had the audacity to give out environment awards. Pardon me for interrupting. Please continue.
I think I was finished, Senator. I was just noting that Woodside had won an award, I think, for the third time, and cited in that award was the work that they do with agencies such as AIMS, CSIRO and the universities in Western Australia.
Okay, well, thank you. I look forward to some more detail of the projects that you've got either underway or in the pipeline to the best of your ability. Just in relation to staffing matters, my recollection is you managed to hold on to your all of your staff after last year's budget. Has there been any redundancies since we last spoke, or that you're anticipating as a result of this most recent budget?
None that are related to funding.
Okay. Now, there do seem to be some cuts that are increasing. I think there's an additional, and please correct me if I'm wrong, an additional 100,000 cut on top of last year, and I believe they're projected to go to about an extra 300,000 by 16-17. Can you tell me, first of all, if I'm accurate on those figures, and secondly, how will you cope with those cuts? What changes will you have to make to factor those in?
I'll leave my General Manager to answer the first question, Senator.
So Senator, look, I'm not aware of any specific cuts other than changes to the appropriation funding indexation rates going forward, and those fluctuate up and down depending typically on CPI forecasts. I'd have to take it on notice if your numbers are exactly correct.
Okay, would indexation normally have that level of funding alteration?
Yes, noting that that's sitting on top of a $38 million appropriation, so a small percentage change
Okay. Well, so
will make that size of variation.
Okay, so again, my question was, what is the work that how are you going to factor those cuts into your workflow?
Can you fellows just identify yourselves when you speak? I'm sorry about that.
Sorry, that last one from David Mead.
So who's talking now?
And my apologies, Chair. It's John Gunn, and we're in different countries. I'm in Portugal, and David Mead and David Suter are in Townsville, so it is a little bit disjointed, I'm afraid.
Well, fortunately, we won't keep you much longer.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn.
There have been no cuts.
Okay.
So, in response to your question, John Gunn, Senator, the practice of all science agencies, all agencies, when they are faced with a cut, is to look for savings within. Efficiencies are driven hard by those types of cuts, and we go through our usual process of looking at ways we could make sure that our science is maintained while becoming more efficient in the back end of the business.
Okay, well, thank you. Just one last question with the time.
Sorry, can I just clarify?
Ms. Beach.
When you do look at the budget papers, I think the revenue from government absolutely increases over the forward estimates. So I just wanted to put that on the record on page 85.
All right, well, thank you. I'll check on my figures and put on notice how we can explain that discrepancy. Just one final question with the brief time I've got remaining. I'm not sure how long you've been in Portugal, Mr. Gunn, and thank you for phoning in from there. But a couple of weeks ago, on Tuesday, May the 12th, there was a front page story in Queensland's Courier Mail which referred to some work of AIMS, and my understanding is that the author of the report has since had some concerns about the fact that she was her work was misrepresented. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this or if either Mr. Suter or Mr. Mead are, but can you share whether or not you thought that coverage was a fair reflection of your work, or what parts were not, if there were some that weren't?
So, John Gunn again, Senator. I think you're correct. There was a report in the Courier Mail, one of a series of articles that they wrote on the Great Barrier Reef leading up to the UNESCO decision. The report was on the basis of quite an informal chat between Dr. Britta Schafelka from AIMS and a journalist from News Corp, Brian Williams. He wrote an article. We were forced to have some commentary on that. Britta Schafelka went into media the following day, basically trying to clarify the situation. I thought it might be worth reading a letter back from the journalist, Mr. Williams, to my scientist, Britta Schafelka.
Yes, please, thank you.
I would be very pleased
Dear Britta,
to do
I
that.
accept responsibility for the quality of my story.
Yep.
I wanted you to know that I did not write the headline or the material that appeared on the front page.
I'm not trying to show.
I'm sorry that you were upset about it. I did not write that the reef had recovered or that corals and seagrasses were blooming. My copy read that they were likely to be slight improvements, and in fact, that's pretty much as we had discussed with him. So, a case of a journalist and a scientist having a factual conversation ending up in something that was less than factual on the front page of a newspaper.
Thank you. Look, would you mind tabling that letter for us, Mr. Gunn, so that we can have a bit of a closer look at that? And thank you. I appreciate that you've taken the chance to clarify that.
Okay. Well, with that, we thank you very much from phoning in from all over the different parts of the world, and we look forward to catching up with you again in October. And I'm sure if any senators have got any questions that they'd like to ask, they'll put them on notice for you. Thank you very much, fellows.
Thank you, Chair.